Warning, this is a guide for the regular nightmare. If you wanted a guide for Phosani's nightmare, let me know and I might make one. Check for a link on it down below. Howdy gamers, it's your favorite guy that likes to wear a blue shirt. Today, we're going to be talking about the nightmare. I'll be honest with you guys, the nightmare is not beginner friendly. The Vorkath virgins out there are going to be in for a rude awakening. But if you're true of heart, have the blood of a lion, and the determination of a mother bear defending her cubs, you might just get rewarded with 1 to 18 bass. But for real, I enjoy this boss a lot, on God. We have a lot to talk about today, so let's jump into it with some requirements and recommendations. As far as combat stats go, I'll have 2 sets of recommendations. The Nightmare does not scale any lower than a 5-man group, so if you're going in with less than 5, I'm going to raise my recommendations. To fight the Nightmare, technically you only need Priest and Peril completed to have access to Mortania, but I'm making it a requirement that you have a Taste of Hope completed for the Draken's Medallion. There's a handful of ways to get to the Nightmare, but the Verzin Haza teleport on the Medallion is the most simple and clean way of doing it. At least until you unlock the sleep teleport on the Medallion, but that's only from Phosani's nightmare. Speaking of getting there, I'll lay it out on a map for you. Be sure you sip a stamina potion before you start your journey. It's a really long run. When you do get there, you'll need to speak to the aptly placed mermaid if it's your first time. Also, she's going to be the person that you talk to if and when you die to get your stuff back. Now, this might seem kind of weird, but I'm going to talk about fighting the nightmare before we go over what gear and inventory to bring. Your inventory can have a lot of variation depending on your group size, experience, your bank value. I think understanding the mechanics first will better help you individually pick out what's best for you. Let me start by giving a very simple overview of what's going on. The Nightmare has 3 phases. Each phase starts with attacking the Nightmare with melee. Once her shield is dropped, you will switch to magic and attack the 4 totems located in the corners of the room. When all 4 totems are completely charged up from your attacks, they will damage the Nightmare directly, and she'll teleport to the center of the room. Before the next phase starts, she'll summon sleepwalkers that you need to kill, 1 per player in the room. Luckily, they are all one-shot by anything that hits them. If you fail to kill any of them and they reach her in the middle, the entire group is going to take scaling damage based on how many made it through. That's going to be the general order of operations though. Melee the Nightmare, magic the totems, kill the sleepwalkers. Of course, that leaves out all of the mechanics you'll be dealing with, and oh boy, do we have some to talk about. To really begin, let's go over the stuff that can happen in any phase. First and foremost, her auto attacks hurt. This will be the most important thing to get right in the fight. Her auto attacks can be melee, range, or magic. Range and magic will hit everyone in the room, but melee is only directed at the tank. So pro tip, don't stand by the tank and you won't have to deal with melee hits. Each of her auto attacks looks and sounds different. You'll need to be paying attention to know what prayer to put on. I highly encourage you guys to play with game sounds on, as the range attack in particular is very distinguishable with how it sounds. Other than her auto attacks, at any point in any phase, she can also make void zones all over the ground. If you see a black circle under you, move away. Also, don't stand under her while this is happening. Going back to what this fight looks like on paper, this is what we have so far. During each phase, the Nightmare is also going to have 2 unique mechanics you're going to have to deal with. In phase 1, her 2 special attacks are Husks and Flower Power. When she summons Husks, a range and magic one will root you in place and begin attacking you. In general, it's better to kill the magic one first, but in any case, you want to kill them as soon as possible using melee. Also, not all players are going to get rooted depending on your group size, so be sure to help out the homies if you're not rooted. Flower Power is going to be the other special in phase 1. The Nightmare will center herself in the arena and divide the room into 4 quadrants with lines of flowers, some dead, and some blooming. What you need to do is stand in the quadrant that is bordered with blooming flowers on each side. If you're not, you're going to be taking a lot of rapid damage. After a short time, the flowers will disappear, and you can move freely around the room again. Remember, the main goal of the fight is to first hit the Nightmare with melee, and then hit the totems with magic. Her auto attacks, void zones, and specials are all going to be coming at you the entire time this is happening until a phase transition with Sleepwalkers. Let's say we're at the end of phase 1 and we just finished charging up the totems with magic. The Nightmare will teleport to the center of the room and summon Sleepwalkers. Hopefully everybody is evenly distributed around the room and kill all the Sleepwalkers before any reach her. At this point, phase 2 will officially start and her 2 special mechanics from phase 1 will no longer happen at all. Get yourself ready to melee her once again, and let me explain the 2 new specials you'll be dealing with. Phase 2 is definitely the hardest phase in the encounter, so if you can make it by the specials here, phase 3 should be the home run lap. The 2 new specials are called Curse and Parasites. When the Nightmare uses Curse, your screen will flash pink for a moment, and your protection prayers will be switched around. Pressing Protect Magic will turn on Protect Range turns on Protect Melee, and Protect Melee will turn on Protect Magic. This curse lasts for 5 Nightmare auto attacks. There will be an audio cue and a message in your text box when it ends, but I highly recommend counting her attacks out loud to keep track of it. Her second special for this phase is called Parasites. The Nightmare is going to infect a few players. Those players will have a notification in their chat box, as well as having their health orb turn yellow. So, if you're infected, you'll have to sip a Sandfuse Serum or a Relisim's Balm to avoid taking massive damage. Even if you sip the appropriate potion, a parasite is still going to emerge from you in about 3 to 4 Nightmare auto attacks. Now, when they come out of you, they are a top priority to kill, as they will be very quickly healing the Nightmare or the totems back to full health. Now, if everything is already at full health, they're going to start attacking players around the room with alternating range and magic attacks. The only thing that has a higher priority than the parasites are the Sleepwalkers, if they happen to come out at the same time. So those are going to be our special attacks in phase 2. In short, remember how your prayers are swapped with Curse, and kill the parasites as soon as possible when they pop out. I would say if you can do that, give yourself a nice pat on the back because the worst is definitely behind you. Phase 3 is our final phase, and it's going to introduce 2 new special attacks to deal with, Spores and Surge. When the Nightmare uses Spores, she'll summon mushrooms around the room. If you stand within 1 tile of a mushroom, it's going to burst and give you a few different debuffs. It's going to lower your attack speed, turn off your run for the duration, and drain your prayer over time. You can also spread this effect to other players if you get too close to them while you're still yawning. Now, this doesn't seem too detrimental, but when combined with her other special attack this phase, you can get knocked out. When the Nightmare uses Surge, she's going to teleport to an edge of the room and dash across to the other side. Anyone in her path is going to get smacked. Normally it's easy to move out of the way, but if you're forced to walk because of the spore infection, it can be a little bit tighter of a window to dodge it. That's going to take you to the end of the fight though. No Sleepwalkers will come out after the totems of phase 3 because she's dead. At this point in time, I'm going to consider you guys competent in the Nightmare's mechanics. Of course, we still have to go over your gear and inventory options, but I want to let you guys know that I have a section later for some advanced fight tips, and I'm going to have some links down below to watch some unedited Nightmare kills, both solo and in a group, if you wanted.
Don't say
try hard.
Dress me. He will not dress you. He will give you the attire to be dressed in.
As I said earlier, when it comes to gear, you're going to have some options. I could just tell you to look at the wiki and have at it, but that just really doesn't do it justice. Let's get something out of the way. The tank. Whoever has the highest combined defense will be targeted by the Nightmare. This includes a combination of everything, your gear, levels, boosts, and prayers. Generally, the most experienced member of the group will be the tank. But really, the only difference is that you have to deal with the Nightmare's melee attacks and tell people to step off if they get too close. Full Justiciar is a very easy way to make sure you're selected as the tank, but in a perfect scenario, everyone would wear the exact same gear and the tank would swap out their DPS boots for Guardian boots. So let's start by looking at what I bring. The Nightmare is weak to Crush, and I essentially have best in slot melee gear. If you're using a Scythe, you do want to set it to Crush. You're also going to notice that my magic switch is only 5 pieces. The totems have no magic defense, so your magic accuracy doesn't matter at all. Only bring magic items that increase your magic strength. I mean it, don't bring Arams. If I see Arams, I'm mad. I would bring Ancestral if I had it, and Tummikin's Shadow is definitely better than a Trident. Additionally, any magic damage on the totems has a chance to be doubled, so you can really hit some big boy numbers. This is also why magic thralls are very good here. I like to use the Ceridome and Godsword for Sleepwalkers. Since you always hit your max hit on them, you can get a guaranteed big heal if you spec them in between the phases. The Blowpipe, on the other hand, is not necessary. I just have it with me to cover for Sleepwalkers if our group isn't doing the best job killing them. Other than that, I prefer regular potions over divine potions since you take a lot of chip damage in the fight. And I want to say that an Imbued Heart is a better DPS increase than Ancestral, and it's way cheaper. Now, the specific amount of potions you're going to bring is going to vary by experience and group size. If you guys are only doing 1-kill trips, you're not going to need 3 Sandfuse Serums. Or if it's your first time, you definitely want to bring more brews. I mean, I would say you could even drop a spec weapon completely if you're new. Use a lot of mental energy just focusing on the Nightmare's auto attacks when you first learn. You'll probably forget to use it anyway. Speaking of spec weapons, once again, you have options. Personally, I would include Dragon Claws or Void Waker in my inventory if I had the extra money. The D-Claws are great to burn down parasites, and the Void Waker can hit huge on the totems. Remember that magic damage. You might even consider bringing a Lightbearer at this point over a Berserker Ring. A Dragon Warhammer is also an option though. Generally, just 1 hit per phase is the recommendation if you bring one though. I believe her defense has a threshold that it can't be lowered past, and it also regens really quickly. I mean, really the sky's the limit here. A Volatile or Eldritch Staff can work on the totems. A G-Maul or Dragon Mace are cheap damage options. I mean, if you're main-handing an Abyssal Bludgeon, you can just use that. For what's actually quote-unquote best to use, I really can't say. The best advice I can give is take a look at your own bank and your own playstyle. Choose the item that feels right. Maybe even have some fun. I'll give you guys 2 more example setups. For someone at moderate wealth, this might be what your setup looks like. A few notes. For learning, the Sang Staff and Blood Fury Amulet are incredibly helpful, and I would highly recommend them if you can afford either. Also, a Mythical Cape is preferred if you're bringing an Abyssal Bludgeon or something less powerful. If you have an Inquisitor's Mace, then a Fire Cape is better. That's from the wiki though, I haven't actually calced it myself. I'll quickly throw down a budget setup as well. Even with this gear, as long as your stats are where I recommended, you'll be completely fine in the fight. Soloing will definitely be more of a struggle, but you'll fit nicely into a group or in the mass world. Remember, playing the fight mechanics correctly is the most impactful thing you can do. That's exactly why I want to go over some of the pro tips I have for the fight. So in no specific order, I'll throw down some extra information that can help you in the fight. Use long range on the Trident. There's no reason not to because the accuracy doesn't matter, and it's just nice to hit the totems from further away. You can be as far as 2 spaces back from the tiles I have marked with blue. The Void Zones will not spawn under you when you're rooted by husks, which is nice. Unfortunately, if you get rooted under the Nightmare and she does it, you're going to take some damage. While you shouldn't stand under her during the Void Zones, you can actually stand on her corner tiles and be protected from them. They can still occasionally pop up there, but it's far less frequent than anywhere else on the map. Now, if you have a parasite and you know when it's going to emerge from you, if possible, you want to stand under the Nightmare when it does. This prevents the parasite from actually healing the Nightmare and allows the team to DPS it down before it does anything. Also, when you're infected by a parasite, click on your health orb to cure yourself, as this will not interrupt your attack cycle. And I just think you guys should know, even if you don't have a teleport out, there's some portals you can walk out of to get out of the fight. That is going to wrap up this video guide on the Nightmare though. If you have any questions at all, feel free to ask me. I do have a whole playlist of boss guides to look at. If you enjoyed this one, you might like those ones too. Like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe for more OSRS content, and most importantly, have a good day. I'll see you guys in the next one.